Okay, so today's video is about footwork and the reputation of Goju Ryu for being slow, heavy and cumbersome. I was watching a video on YouTube a couple of days ago. There was a teacher in Okinawa, he was a Shorin Ryu 10th Dan, and a foreigner was visiting him and doing an interview and this kind of thing. And the teacher, it wasn't in the translation, but if you understand some Japanese, you can pick it up. He talks about the difference between Goju Ryu and Shorin Ryu. And what he was saying was Shorin Ryu is very light, fast and agile, and Goju Ryu is very heavy, cumbersome. You know, it's powerful, but it's slow. This old stereotype that we find ourselves encountering time and time again within this art. I can remember going to visit I'm going to leave the name out, but I went to visit a 10th Dan Shorin Ryu expert. He was a student of Shoshin Shibana. And I went to visit him with one of my teachers, Yasuda sensei from the Jundokan. So we have tea with this teacher, you know, talking. It's all very cordial. And he invites me back the next day to come watch practice. So I go back the next day to watch practice. This time I'm on my own. And the Shorin Ryu teacher is talking to me, and he's saying the same thing. He's saying to me, you know, you should give up Goju Ryu because, you know, Sanchin, you're going to die young. You know, you're going to become slow. You're going to get heavy. You're going to get bad health. It's dangerous for you, bad for your health, and this sort of thing. And I remember thinking, you were sat there yesterday with my teacher, you know, very cordial, very amicable between you. And now my teacher's gone. Now you're saying that what we do is no good. It just left a bitter taste in my mouth. But it's something that I came up against time and time again. And you can see it in so many different books or interviews or videos or whatever. This stereotype repeated time and time again. Now, when we look at Goju Ryu, you know, we have to look at the problem with honesty, because it's obviously a thing. If it keeps being said, it's obviously a thing. It comes from somewhere. Yeah, maybe it can be a little bit of propaganda. Our school's better than yours because we do it this way. This exists across the board in all martial arts. But we also have to take ourselves out of the art, take our ego out of the art and look in with honesty and think, okay, is there some truth to this, you know? And if we were to look at the majority of performances of Goju Ryu kata, objectively, not as part of the style, we would probably be inclined to agree with them, because most performances of Goju Ryu kata are slow, cumbersome, heavy, and, you know, lacking in dynamism. The Muchimi thing has been given a lot more importance than it needs to within kata. And if we contrast it with Toron-ryu, which, you know, the Muchimi aspect of it is largely absent from that school and the way they practice, more akin to what you would see in a Shorin type performance of kata. Now, why has this become a thing? Well, if we look at the teachers that we try to emulate within Goju Ryu, if we look at performances of kata from Miyazato sensei, performances of kata from Taguchi sensei, to an extent from Yagi sensei, it is heavy, it is slow, it is cumbersome, and we look to these teachers and these pioneers of Goju Ryu as the examples to follow, right? We start to copy them. Higaonna sensei, Higaonna Morio sensei, very heavy Muchimi. It become a real big part of everything he did within the RGKF. So again, we copy that slow, heavy, sticky style, and we lose the vibrance, we lose that agility, we lose the quickness. And if we look back even just one generation before Miyagi Chojun, when we look at Kanryo Higaonna, where ultimately we trace our lineage to, well, Kanryo Higaonna was known for his fast, agile footwork, to the extent that he was known as Ashi no Tona, or legs Higaonna, you know, because his legs were so fast, they were so powerful, they were so quick. Even if we look at Miyagi Chojun sensei, he was known in his youth as a gymnast. Incredible agility, the ability to jump from Caesar and kick the ceiling. The same story, by the way, and that's attributed to pretty much every single Okinawan karate master. The ability to jump up from Caesar and kick the ceiling. I've yet to see anyone do it. You know, these things are within our history that would imply, that would lead me to believe that we weren't always slow, cumbersome and heavy. And that this is something that's come later down the line. And again, to take it outside of the realms of Goju Ryu, if we look at strength training, I have a group of youngsters coming down tonight. I've got 11 boxers, youth boxers coming down to do strength conditioning with me. Because they want to introduce it to their gym, but they don't know how. And the whole rhetoric around strength conditioning, specifically weight training within boxing, is that it will slow you down. It'll make you too heavy, it'll slow your punches down, and you lose your quickness, you'll lose your power, which is the complete opposite thing to what it will actually do, you know? Hojo Undo, when we look at the reputation of Hojo Undo, well, Goju Ryu is slow and heavy because of the Hojo Undo. And even in the time of Miyagi Chojun Sensei, he was written off largely as just being a strong man. Oh, you just do the weight training. You're only good because you're strong. Okay, so this is something that was encountered throughout the history of Goju Ryu. Now, if we want to do something about this, we can just, you know, whatever, do you, whatever. But if we want to change this perception, which I do, you know, I don't, this gets my goat, it gets my back up when people say this about the art because it's untrue. But we don't do ourselves any favours. So when we perform the kata, we need to be displaying these attributes of quickness, of lightness, of suliashi, of being able to make ground, of being able to retreat fast, of being able to jump higher. All these things that are in the kata that we're kind of crap at because we've become so anchored and we become so ingrained within our sanchin of hold the ground, lock your stance, don't be moved in shimmy. All these things that just stick us to the ground. And we become so, it's like the old analogy of, you know, if the monkey grip, if I hold on to something, I'll continue holding that for dear life. Someone be punching you in the head and you'll still have hold of a collar. It's just an inbuilt thing to us that once we latch onto something, we don't want to let that go. And it's the same with anchoring the stances. There is a time and a place to anchor your stance, but it's not all the time. It's only at the point and in the direction of which you're being pulled. So if we just grip at the floor and, you know, I get one guy was complaining about my toes not being engaged enough or something or other. I don't need to engage my toes until I'm being pulled or pushed, right? And it's dependent upon the kata. If I'm pulling here, I'll anchor the stance because I need something to anchor me as I pull. If I'm charging forward with the shoulder to put a shoulder into someone, I need that front foot light. My back foot will be anchored, my front foot will not. So the shikadachi in both of these cases is different. In the first instance, I'm pulling, there is a difference. There is a drawing in of the feet. There is a dragging of the toes. In the second instance, where I'm trying to put my weight into someone, I want this leg to become light so that I can add weight to that shoulder charge and add power and mass and speed. Whereas if that was anchored, it was in effect perform a break. So I would lose something from that. So it's all dependent, it's all transitional. And the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes we fall into the habit of just anchoring for the sake of anchoring, right? Because that's what we've been ingrained to do. But we have to always be thinking about what is the purpose of this position? What is the purpose of this stance? And if we are, again, kake is something that develops this. We get stuck in kake. Don't let them move you. Don't let your toes raise. Don't break structure. You know what? There are times where I will want my foot to come off. Yasuda Sensei, the same teacher I mentioned earlier, he used to do it on one leg. He'd take his one leg off the ground. And I remember being amazed by this. Well, how can you do this on one leg? Hey, it's a party trick. If I take that leg off the ground, all that weight is now into you. You're now carrying all my weight, as opposed to if my stance is 50-50, well, now you can move me. If I lift that, even if I lift it off just a little bit like that, just a little bit, I'm adding weight to your arm. So these are some of the little parlor tricks that if you're not aware of, you can, if you cross hands with a Kung Fu practitioner, a good old school Kung Fu practitioner, they'll pull all these tricks on you and you won't know how they're doing it because it looks like magic. It's not, it's just to understand weight distribution and how to make yourself light or heavy. Again, this balance of Goju. So this is something that we need to be aware of within our kata, our performance, our positioning, our anchoring to the ground or lack of. Start putting that into our kata so that we can directly combat this erroneous opinion of us being slow, cumbersome, and too anchored in our stances. Let people come test you. Once you have this, come test me, come find out. That's your challenge. Get after it.